Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Create Something Awesome Today podcast. For anybody watching the replay, I'm going to actually start the podcast experience here pretty soon, but right now we are doing live, so I'm going to do a bit of a green room, and then we're going to do a little bit of an after show. And so when we go live, I'm going to be recording that for the audio version. This is live broadcast on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Periscope, and Facebook all at the same time, which is really dope. And it happens because of our friends over at StreamYard. So make sure you're checking them out in the show notes linked down below. Really excited for today's episode. We're going to talk about saturated niches and why they don't exist. And you can tell that by the title here. So I'm really glad to see some of the early people here. I see Arik, Elliot, Garden of Blessings, Jesse. Thank you for joining on the podcast this afternoon. And so we're going to go live here in a second. Let me just get some water going. Alejandro, what's up? But yeah, this one is going to be a really good episode, you guys. And I think the audio is probably better now. In fact, actually, can you guys let me know in the comment section and in the replay if the audio is better? And for those of you watching the replay after this has gone live, hopefully I've updated the thumbnail because I know that they're pretty bad when I don't. And also, just so you guys know, if you leave comments after the episode is already up and on YouTube as a replay, I'm basically replying to all of the comments on the podcast, usually as early as possible, but I do try to reply to those just because we have a nice smaller community here than on a larger YouTube channel. So I really do appreciate it. And when you guys subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, it really does help us out quite a bit. So please make sure you're doing that. And then if you're enjoying the audio version of the podcast, please leave us a rating and review on iTunes, as it helps push the podcast out a little bit more. So thank you everybody for that. And let's go ahead and kick off the show. Let's not hold it up any longer. Let's go ahead and roll the intro music. And I'll go ahead and start recording the podcast.
Welcome to the Create Something Awesome Today podcast, where it's all about educating and motivating creative pros and entrepreneurs from around the world with simple and easy to implement ideas. And of course, helping you create something awesome today. And now, welcome your host. He is the founder of Awesome Creator Academy, a YouTube educator, and the biggest Star Wars nerd you'll ever meet, Roberto Blake.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Create Something Awesome Today podcast. This is your host, Roberto Blake, helping you create something awesome today. Today we have an interesting show. It is live thanks to our friends at StreamYard. Thank you for being a sponsor. And I'm really excited about this because it addresses an issue that I know a lot of people are insecure about. A lot of people get very insecure about the idea of competing in a saturated niche. And the reality is, there is no such thing as a saturated niche if you really think about it. The majority of people competing in a niche don't get recognition, and that's why people get discouraged. It's because, well, I'm new, I'm small, I'm at the bottom. How do I stand out? How do I compete? There's all these established people here, and people get discouraged and they think that there's no hope for them. When the thing is, you can compete and you can get recognized in a niche where there are a lot of large players if you operate and deliver the kind of value that stands out in the niche. Most of the people in the niche, if you think it is saturated, ultimately don't create anything of high quality or anything that is of great value. Most niches are frankly saturated with crap. I'll just be very blunt about that. And that's not to disrespect anybody or put anyone down, but the reality is that there are a lot of people in these niches that think, oh, it's a saturated niche, when it's not saturated with an abundance of high quality. So whether that is in a business or whether that's as a content creator, and this is especially true for content creators, because with a business, there's usually a barrier to entry. With business, there's a barrier to entry that stops anybody from offering something of low quality, something of no value. That's not true when it comes to content platforms and social media. Anybody with a phone can basically sign up. And that doesn't necessarily mean that, and a lot of people want a participation trophy for signing up. They want access to every feature just because they're there, and they think it's supposed to be some egalitarian fantasy where everybody's equal. And that's not true, because that's not in the best interest of the people consuming content on the platform. Just like it would not be in the best interest of everybody consuming in the marketplace. And that makes some people feel bad about themselves, but that's a personal problem with insecurity. And I hate to say it, but social media is full of people who want validation for producing mediocre content. And so the reason that it feels so hard is because it should be hard to get 5 to 10 minutes of someone's attention that they're never, ever going to get back. It should be hard to get that 5 to 10 minutes of somebody's life, and they better get some value in exchange for that. So when you think about time, it's our most precious commodity because it's not exactly a renewable resource here. All right. So when you ask someone for their time, when you ask for their attention, you're asking usually for the thing they have the least of. Okay. It's actually easier to part with money than to part with time. So I want you to make that in your head a bigger priority and ask yourself, is what you're producing something that anybody else can do, and why? And what's the real value here? And I don't want to hear that the real value is your unique, stunning personality, okay? Because for most people, that's not enough value by itself, especially if they don't know you. That works for your friends and family. It works, and it's something that's said to make people feel better. But the reality is that we have to make sure that we're constantly communicating our value, that we're elevating our value, and that we are striving to produce value that people want. And what the mistake is that people confuse effort with value. They confuse the effort that they're putting in with the value that people want to receive. And that's a massive, massive assumption. Just because you put effort and you put your heart and soul and sweat and tears into something doesn't mean that anybody cares or that they should. Because if it doesn't give them what they want, why would it be valuable to them? Why would they consider it valuable? Why would they invest in it? Why should they care? Your effort is not the same as the value that the person on the other end wants. And that's the real harsh truth of it. And I want to be frank with you about that because it's a conversation that's not had in our space. And it is something that I see people confusing. And that confusion leads to the frustration and getting discouraged and getting angry. And then it goes from blaming the algorithm. To be honest with you, when you're blaming the algorithms, you're blaming the audience, because the algorithm is there to give value to the audience. It's there to serve no other real purpose than to give value to the end consumer so that the platform can get what it wants. And that's ultimately how all of this works. So when you blame the algorithm, you're really blaming the culture and the audience and consumer behavior. And the thing is, I can understand and appreciate that frustration. I can understand that because what you want to do, what you want to produce, what you want to make isn't always compatible with what people care about. And that can seem harsh or that can seem unreasonable because then in the supply and demand system, you're at the mercy of whatever's relevant. But that's always been the case. And it's true for you as well, because you don't invest and spend time on things just to be kind. You do it because you're getting something out of it. And so when we recognize that and we are honest with ourselves about our own consumption, whether it's content or whether it's product, then we can't really complain about how ruthless the market is. We just really can't. And it's a hard conversation because the thing is, it may be true, but it's not to invalidate that feeling of frustration or the hurt from what feels like a rejection, because I can understand and appreciate that as an artist, as a content creator, as a business person, as a human being. I can understand the pain of working really hard on something and then feeling like nobody cared, But I also feel like you have to own when you're working on something and it's for you and your own reasons, and that may not be compatible with other people and their reasons. So the thing is, it's kind of about respecting where people are and what they want, and that may not be compatible with what you want. And that's fair. That's fair. When you're the one doing the asking, sometimes the answer is going to be no, and you have to learn how to live with that. That's part of what having the courage to ask is. Having the courage to ask is being able to live with hearing no. And that frustration and that hurt, it's not that it isn't valid, but you have to kind of get past it. You have to work past it, as some people would say, quote unquote, get over with, because that's what life is. Life is full of disappointments sometimes, and that's not to be pessimistic or cynical. It's just a fact. But the thing is, on the other side, there's disappointments when you decide to work through them, when you decide to shift your priorities, or when you decide to have a different perspective. You can get through and work through that frustration, and then you can find a way to win. And then you can also decide what you're willing to do in terms of, well, what does it take? And so when you do that, you're actually being reasonable. And when you decide that you're going to be reasonable and you're going to be thoughtful, you can actually find a path to victory, because what's not saturated is things that have their own unique twist on them. What's not saturated is going the extra mile. Going the extra mile is never saturated. Showing up early, not saturated. Being consistent is not saturated. Being disciplined is not saturated. Okay? I really think that being patient is not saturated. So when you approach things with a high level of discipline, with a high level of consistency and commitment, and when you're willing to be patient when other people aren't, you have a better shot of winning than they do, because they might look like they're winning in the short term. But you know what? Taking shortcuts and short-term thinking has never produced long-term results. So you have to decide if you want instant gratification or do you want longevity. Do you want instant gratification or do you want longevity? That's a choice. And that choice is reflected in the habits that you have. It's reflected in the commitments that you make. It's reflected in that consistency. And so I think that when you decide that you want something and you want a goal, you have to decide whether or not you're in this for the long haul, and that whatever sacrifices you're going to have to make to get there are really worth it. And someone in the live experience here, this is one of the benefits of being live, Zach Scriven, I think I'm pronouncing that right, says patience is in short supply. I couldn't agree more, Zach. And so in the name of patience, guys, sit back for a quick second for a word from one of our sponsors.
Are you an entrepreneur, creative pro, or
Oops.
We thrive thanks to the support from our sponsors. Here's a word from one of them.
We're able to provide the live experience of the Create Something Awesome Today podcast every Wednesday because of our friends at StreamYard. StreamYard is the ultimate simplicity when it comes to live streaming. And as of right now, it's allowing me to do this live broadcast in Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube, which is actually amazing. And I really do feel like StreamYard is the simplest app when it comes to a live streaming experience. It allows you to bring in multiple guests, which makes it perfect for podcasters and anyone doing an interview style show. You can use it on YouTube, you can use it on Twitch, you can use it on Facebook, you can even use it on LinkedIn Live. And I couldn't be happier with the overall experience that I have whenever I'm using StreamYard. You can also brand this and customize this for whatever show you're doing. So if you want to check that out, make sure you're going to robertoblake.com/go/StreamYard and make sure that you tell them Roberto sent you. Link is in the description and in the show notes. And now back to our show. So I was talking about the importance of patience, and I really feel that this one is drastically undersold when it comes to the idea of competing. You will find that a lot of people quit very early. I think that the majority of people who, when you measure success and failure, when you want to measure success and failure, it's measured in discipline, consistency, and patience. Discipline is doing things when they're difficult and without validation. So many of you give up or get discouraged because of a lack of validation for the work that you're doing. And as a result of a lack of that discipline to be able to do the work without validation, you don't do it consistently enough and long enough in order to really get results and to improve and to sharpen your skills, sharpen your craft, and get truly good at something, or to build any momentum behind it. Momentum is a very, very powerful thing, my friends. And so I think that a lot more of you would benefit from looking at how you can be more disciplined. Is there something you're not doing that could be improved through more discipline and a deeper commitment to it that doesn't require or ignores external validation? Not doing something because it didn't get traction. I understand like doing stuff that works. I talk about, hey, do what works. I talk about this pretty regularly. However, sometimes you're not giving yourself a chance to build up to it and to build momentum and to truly learn. A lot of people give up on something early without bothering to learn to do it well. And that's because there's no applause. There's no pat on the back. There's no validation for the process of getting good at something. Getting good at something, there's no validation. There's no cheering section for dress rehearsal. There's not. And the thing is, a lot of people won't admit that what they're doing in social media, what they're doing in their business, whatever they're doing, if they've never done it before and they haven't done it hundreds or thousands of times, it's freaking rehearsal. Why should people give you attention when right now you're not doing anything? You're trying to do something. You're in the process of learning. You are producing your coal pile. You are doing the groundwork, the grunt work. This is not a final finished product. This is something that's in alpha or beta. Why do you think you should get all the attention or all the praise in the world for that? Why do you think 100 people, 1,000 people should care about your practice efforts? Do you see the absurdity of that? If we apply this ideology to sports, if we apply this philosophy to sports, it gets really ridiculous really quick to have those expectations, to expect and to want those things. And I know that's human to want validation, but you know, I grew up in a world pre-internet where you didn't get a lot of external validation for anything you were doing, and you learned to do it anyway. So many people give up on anything that requires creativity because they've grown up now in a world of validation being so much of a commodity and being desperate for attention. I genuinely, you know, a lot of people, I'm 36. A lot of people don't realize that but I'm 36. And I sometimes used to lament not being born a younger millennial, that I'm not 10 years younger, like a lot of my friends and a lot of my contemporaries. And I've stopped since regretting that because I feel bad for everybody that grew up in a world where the internet was there for them for day one, because despite all the opportunities and advantages they have, they will never have the advantage of growing up a few years and developing who you are as a person in a world where you're not judged for every little thing and where you don't have the ability to put out every little thought documented forever with the consequences of that being long lasting. I got to grow up in a world where all of my mistakes can be forgiven and forgotten. Basically, everything up until I was about 22, 23 years old that I've ever done in my life, there's almost no documentation and no record of that. And that's a good thing because it meant I got to develop as a human being without the scrutiny and judgment of hundreds or thousands of strangers. And I got to make my mistakes without them being held over my head in perpetuity. And that allows for a lot of personal development. It allows for a lot of discipline, and it teaches you a lot of good habits. And it means that you're not infected by so many inputs and schools of thought that never allow you to form your own. And that's important for your discipline. Growing up in a world for more than 20 years without a smartphone existing is one of the best gifts I could have ever asked for, because it meant that I got to develop for over 20 years without this creating wildly addictive behaviors and ruining my ability to concentrate and my discipline. I have a 2 decades advantage over people just based on the fact that I grew up without this. So I have a decade to 2 decades more worth of discipline just because I was born a little earlier. I'm not even joking, and that sounds a little pretentious, but I think it's a really healthy way to look at it, because these things, as much as they are great for business and as much as they connect us to people that share our dreams, our thoughts, our ambitions, and as wonderful as that is, and to find support systems, the reality is there are a lot of negative consequences that we don't reckon for. And these are in many ways just as bad for us as they are good, largely because we're not conditioned for, and the world does not want us to be disciplined. The world profits off of our undisciplined and unruly habits. It profits off of our lack of consistency, and it profits largely off of our lack of patience. The lack of impulse control that this encourages is fantastic for consumerism. It's fantastic for the market, and it's probably bad for you as a person. And I'm one of the only people in social media, as an online businessman, as a social media marketer, as a content creator and influencer, who will probably tell you that this, I don't blame the technology beyond the fact that I'm telling you that it does not only reveal some of your worst impulses and your bad habits, it encourages them and it takes advantage of them. And the thing is, if you don't build up, and even if you are a person of discipline, you can still fall prey to it. Absolutely. You can absolutely still fall prey to it if you're an intelligent person. And if you think you're a person of discipline, it can erode that discipline very easily. And there are a lot of things that do that. And so I really feel that when you look at people who don't make it, quote unquote, if you start to measure how disciplined they are, if you measure their levels of consistency and their levels of patience, it's not a surprise when they don't succeed. I have almost never seen somebody who was wildly disciplined, was extraordinarily consistent, and massively patient fail. I don't think I've ever seen it. I mean, if anybody else has seen it, please let me know in the comments. Please let me know in the comments if you really think about that. If you think about it, do you know, and can you name someone who's a failure that has massive amounts of discipline, has been extraordinarily consistent in what they do, like shows up every day, and then at the same time is absurdly patient, can hold their breath longer than anybody? I don't know people with those characteristics that fail. I don't know people with those characteristics that fail. Now, a lot of people will pull the chicken and the egg thing and say, well, the reason that those people have those qualities is because of their success and because of their circumstances. And I just don't believe that to be the case. There are plenty of people who have everything going for them that they don't succeed at what they do. They spend good money after bad, or however the saying goes. There are a lot of people that come from advantages, head starts, and positions of privilege that fail and lose to underdogs who know how to take a punch. It happens every day. It happens every day. And the majority of people who are successful are in fact first generation, are in fact usually quote unquote self-made. Being self-made isn't about whether you ever received any help in life, because if that were true, then every failure would be at the doorsteps of every parent and every teacher and everybody in that person's life. And we don't sit there and we don't own the failures for anybody that we ever did or didn't help. So why would we then try to take credit for their successes as well? People are allowed to have that story in the narrative of being self-made without you having to hunt down, did anybody at any point ever do anything for them? Because the thing is, if somebody did something for them and they failed, you wouldn't blame that person for that failure. So why are you attributing all their success to the times that they might have gotten some help. That makes absolutely no sense. And so you'll find a recurring theme of this podcast and of my content in general is attacking these little nice, pretty colloquialisms that trap people into limiting beliefs and into schools of philosophy that are ultimately doomed. I hate doomed philosophies built on pessimism or unfounded rhetoric that defeat common sense and ignore the natural consequences of people's actions being legitimate. And that's, again, why I say that the sprint is saturated, but the marathon isn't. Most people don't want to go the distance. Most people do not become long distance runners. I was a track and cross country person. I was a long distance runner, and there was almost nobody who did long distance running. There was a lot less people going out for the team doing long distance events. They wanted to sprint. They wanted to suffer and get it over with real quick and move on. And that's what a lot of people want to do in life. They don't want to stay on a path. If I told you that there was a method, and I'm not saying there is, but if I told you there was a methodology and a process of becoming a millionaire, even a multimillionaire, but it was 10 years of absurdly hard work and arduous labor, and that if you take more than 1 week off at any point in the 10 years from doing these exact tasks and routines, you have to start the 10-year clock all over again, most of you wouldn't do it. And here's the thing. That's exactly usually what it takes. And I took this metaphor from a story I was told about a tree, about a plant, that there was this seed, and if you water the seed every day for 6 years, it's going to grow into this amazing plant. I think it's a bamboo tree. But it's like, but if you miss a day, if you miss a single day, the plant's going to die. And so what you feed is what grows. What you consume, what you feed yourself is what will grow inside of you and ultimately what will manifest in your life. And a lot of people take this for granted, and they don't realize that their daily actions are cumulative. There's a such thing as compound interest. It is the most powerful force there is in the universe, is compound interest, okay? And so when you look at that and you see that there's a such thing as compound interest on your actions accumulated daily, you realize that, well, every day is 365 years. What am I doing now that adds up to the life I want? If I took even one action, one step a day throughout the whole year, that's hundreds of pieces of effort with cumulative momentum consistently compounding toward my ultimate goal. That's how I came up with Create Something Awesome Today. Create Something Awesome Today is about having a daily mandate for your own success. What are you doing that is so awesome, that is so good, that is so extra, that is so above average, that moves your life forward in the right direction toward the life that you think you want and that you deserve to have? What are you doing to create something awesome today for yourself and for other people? What are you doing to make the world a better place? And so this is about momentum and compound interest and cumulative effort and consequences. And people want to try and get around those things. And there is no getting around those things. Those things are things that exist within nature. These are fundamental natural laws. This is not some hokey woo-woo philosophy. This is real. And so compounded effort cumulatively over time of doing something, even if it's difficult, adds up and it matters. That's how athletes do it. Athletes do something that is difficult. They break down and rebuild the muscles in their body. They put themselves through physical trauma time and time again. And if they're consistent and disciplined in doing that over a long enough period of time through patience, they get results that make them above average human beings, above average physical specimens. That is a primary example right there. If you invest even a little bit of money, the compound interest over a period of time is phenomenal. Do you know how dynasties are built I will tell you, on my phone here, I'm going to run a compound interest calculator to show you how dynasties are built. So with the concept of compounding interest, let's use a modest 10% interest rate, and let's come up with something very, very reasonable. Let's look at what would be reasonable. Let's even look at what this is going to be absurd. What if I told you that $1 a day of compound what do you think? Let me ask you guys, how much money do you think $1 a day of compound interest is over the course of actually, let me do it this way. Yeah. What do you think? What do you guys think that the compound interest of $1 a day, meaning $30 a month, $1 a day of compound interest at 10%, no cheating anybody. What do you think $1 a day of compound interest is after 60 years at 10%? It's 10% of $1 a day for 60 years. What do you think you get to leave behind to your children or grandchildren if you just put aside $1 a day for 60 years? What do you think that is? I would love to know. So those of you who are watching the live, let me know. And those of you who are in the replay, watching this later or listening to the podcast later, let me know as well. So we have a couple of guesses here. We have 50K, 3,000, 10 million, $30,000.90. So this is interesting. So let me tell you, on 10% interest over the course of 60 years, $30 a month, aka $1 a day, comes out to $1,092,533.90 because you contributed in your lifetime $21,600, and the compounding interest is just over $1 million. So, there were a couple of people in the live that were close, but you see, $30 a month is not a lot of money. However, over a long enough period of time, in this case, 60 years, with 10% interest. Now, 10% interest sounds like a lot, but you have to remember 10% interest is half of what the S&P 500 has done on average over the last 75 years, I think. It's like S&P 500 over the last 75 years has done something like 18 or 20% over or under. So that's just if you went into an index fund. Okay, so if you went into an S&P 500 index, let alone growth stocks or something stable enough, that's, a whole nother thing. I can do a whole episode. I'll bring on a friend from financial YouTube or something to talk about investing, because I love to bring on experts. But my point is, look at that. Look at what the effort is. So think about it from that perspective. Somebody can leave their child or grandchild, if they're willing to give up $1 a day for their entire working life, they can leave their heirs, their descendants well off, and let them start with $1 million in the bank. But the thing is, you'd have to do it every day, right? To put this into a more reasonable perspective and to give you kind of a sense of the direction I'm going, the way that I invest, I have a way that I invest where I get I average 18% a year or better returns, the way that I invest. If I were to invest $1,000 a month with if I were to invest $1,000 a month with no additional contributions, nothing, if I had nothing else and I invested $1,000 a month, 15 years from now, with my current interest rates, 15 years from now, I'd have $731,000. So over $700,000. I'd have over $700,000. I would have done over $500,000 in profit just off of that if I'm consistent for 15 years at $1,000 a month. Okay. Now, let's just say that I'm doing a little bit more than that, putting away for my future. And so that I know that I will basically, the way I've planned it out, I will basically have the baseline for a good modest retirement in 15 years, even though we all know I'll never retire. We all know I'll never retire. We know that I'll just move on to doing something else, but I won't ever retire. Artists, photographers, painters, writers, like people who create things, they don't ever really retire, you know? So what I will say is that that's what consistency and patience can do. Consistency and patience is just doing something over and over and over. And then you have to do it over a long period of time. You have to do it over a long period of time. So that's why if I look at, well, if I delay the gratification of spending money for 15 years, it guarantees me being a multimillionaire, but I'd have to do something hard. So what's really hard is to put money away and to bet on the market instead of putting that money under your mattress where it will depreciate in value, or just having that money sit in a bank account, or spending that money on something you like. That's called discipline, because that's not easy to do. That's called discipline. And then consistency is doing it every single month without fail, no matter how hard it is, just do it. That's the discipline and consistency put together. And then patience is how long can you do it? How long can you do it? So that is the secret. That is the quote unquote secret, is discipline, consistency, and patience. It is the single formula that you need to be successful. Do something that makes you a person of discipline, that sets you apart. Do something as a person of discipline that sets you apart from 90 to 99% of people. What is the most challenging, difficult thing that you can think of that is reasonable for where you are? And can you just do the work to get there? Then can you be consistent at this disciplined habit? And then how long can you do that disciplined habit? That is the mathematical equation for ultimately being successful. And someone in the comments here is saying the same can be applied to YouTube. Absolutely. Discipline would be, do you have the discipline to do the work to be a better content creator? Do you have the discipline to work very hard with no validation at getting better on camera? Do you have the discipline with no validation to improve your audio, to improve your video, to learn good lighting? Because those things are hard. It's hard to learn good lighting. You have to be a person of discipline to learn new things. So you have to get good at that. It is hard to learn, the proper settings and the audio stuff. And it's hard to say, I'm going to save up the money and buy a good microphone instead of going out or buying this or buying that. Like, it's hard to do those things. It's hard to put something first that doesn't have an immediately satisfying or a very selfish thing you can do. So investing in your content is a lot harder than going on vacation or buying an Xbox. You see what I'm saying? It's about those priorities. So that's where you become a person of discipline. And then consistency is just like somebody here is saying, is like doing 3 videos a week or something like that, or 2 videos a week, or showing up every week on Wednesday. That's a consistency thing. So it's discipline to do something hard. It's consistency to do that disciplined thing over and over and over again, regardless of whether it's validating and regardless of whether it feels good. And then how long can you keep doing that? How long can you keep doing that disciplined thing consistently over a period of time? And that is going to tell you a lot. That is going to determine ultimately how successful you are or are not in the end. In the end, that is really what it's going to come down to. And that's why the sprint is saturated, because the thing is, if something's really hard, just getting it over with and not being consistent at it, a lot of people would rather do that. So a lot of people would rather try to blow up or go viral than be consistent. Okay? A lot of people would rather get a shout out or get lucky than do consistent hard work and struggle and show up for it to all just slowly, incrementally. A lot of people hate incrementalism. They hate incrementalism. They have no patience, none. But you know what? Incrementalism probably has the highest success rate out of anything else in the universe. In the universe, incrementalism works. The water wears down the stone, okay? The water wears down, the river wears down the rock. The river wears down the rock every single time long enough, okay? On a long enough timeline. It's just how it is. It's just how it is. And like I said, if you saved money or invested money every single day, if you invested money every single day on a long enough timeline, it works. On a long enough timeline, it works. It works out. The thing is, anything you want can be plugged into the equation of what difficult thing am I willing to do consistently over a long period of time. Slow and steady wins the race. How many people try to take shortcuts? How many people try to use secret sauce? How many people try get rich quick? How many people try that ultimately only to fail? Whereas success is usually predicated, it's not sexy. It is not sexy to become a millionaire at 40 or 50. The sexy story is to say that you did it before you were 25, to say that you did it before 30. It's more likely that you're going to do it at 40 or 50 because it's going to be that you took a lot more time to get there. And it's going to mean that maybe you were making realistic sacrifices along the way instead of going to extremes. Because a lot of people who do it at 25, 30, some of them are happy, some of them are not. And the reason that a lot of them may not be happy is because you can do that. It's achievable. But the extremes you will have to go to and experience during a time and realizing that tomorrow is not promised, that is not necessarily a healthy way to live one's life. The way that you would have to live your life in order to become a millionaire at 25 or 30 to have the sexier story of the sprint instead of the marathon is probably not healthy. Now, there are reasons to do that, and I'm not taking away from that. And I'm not trying to talk anyone out of that by any means or any stretch of the imagination. If I had known what I know today, I would have probably hustled to that. If I had had Roberto Blake to tell me some things as a mentor and to tell me some things in my 20s, I probably would have actually made it to a million before 30 and made those sacrifices. But I don't know that for all of that success and those resources, those probably would have, and my money would then be probably spent undoing all the damage to my mental health that I would have caused in the wake of that. So I think about that quite a bit. And it's the same thing with trying to get to 1 million YouTube subscribers. I've been on YouTube consistently since July of 2013, when I made my account, mostly to comment on other people's videos in 2009, and I was uploading 4 times a year. I can't call myself a YouTuber. I can't call myself a content creator. I was uploading 4 times a year. That's like, what am I thinking? No. Like, if you're not a filmmaker or animator, that's nothing. So what I consider my beginnings on YouTube is when I made a commitment and I became disciplined. And I was like, all right, tutorials every week. And I did that. I missed sometimes, but whatever. And so for me, the consistency of making about 1,400 videos over the last 7.5 years is why I'm at almost 500,000 subscribers. If I want to go to 1 million subscribers, it will basically come down to me probably making, one way or another 300 to 500 videos. That's what I've figured out at this point, is that 1 million subscribers is somewhere between the next 300 and 500 videos that I make. And so I don't really plan on going back to being a daily content creator like I was for 2.5 years, because I'm not sure that that's compatible with what for me looks like a healthy lifestyle right now, I'm not sure that daily content on my main YouTube channel, for the standard of quality that we have for my main YouTube channel, even with the fact that as of next month, I'll have an editor, I don't think that 7 videos a week, I don't think daily content is sustainable or practical for my life because of how much energy that would take, even if I'm not doing the editing, to make those videos in a way that I'll be happy with. So I'd rather make content that I'll be happy with and that I'll enjoy doing and that's valuable to my audience than just trying to do whatever it takes to get to 1 million subscribers. And I'd rather put the energy, by the way, into getting to $1 million a year income, which I don't need 1 million subscribers to do. I don't need 1 million subscribers to get to $1 million a year income. I have a plan that makes it practical to go there. I don't want to rush my way to 1 million subscribers if it's going to make me miserable along the way, because the happiness of unboxing a gold play button is extremely fleeting. The damage that I would have done over any period of time to myself in whatever lifestyle I'm living to rush my way there in a year or something wouldn't be worth it. It really wouldn't. But the thing is, most people don't have the self-awareness or maturity to recognize that. And so you have to figure out, like, what does it take? And are you willing to pay those costs? And will you complain about it later? There are plenty of people on YouTube who, in hindsight, will try to talk you out of doing the things they did that made them rich or successful. In some cases, I'm one of them in the sense that I try to discourage people from doing daily content, to be honest. Daily content is what grew my YouTube channel the fastest. It is, like, truth be told, that's what did it the fastest. I was able to get to a place after my momentum of being able to sustain what generates 100,000 subscribers a year in growth without being daily anymore. I was able to cut it down. It's going to take, for me, like 2 to 3 videos a week is what would do it, and some spurts of doing a certain amount of content. But the truth is that what I learned from that is that it's not practical for most people to do at all. It's just really not. And I think it'll become less and less practical to be a daily content creator as time goes on and as the goalpost on what quality and value is to the viewer evolves and changes. So I can't reasonably recommend what I did, much in the same way that it is like you're finding that there are millionaires and people who will say, here's what I did, but I took it too far. And they're not wrong or hypocritical to tell you that, but it tells you that there are consequences for what it takes to be successful. And you have to be able to look in the mirror after you make those sacrifices and be okay with them. Or you have to be able to look on those things without regrets, because whatever you think at the end of the rainbow is going to make you happy, if you think that's going to make up for your regrets, that's not a really healthy bet a lot of the times. That's really not a healthy bet a lot of the times. So someone said, Anwar asked, so you don't compete? I only compete with myself. I only compete with myself. And that's something you learn as a track and cross country runner, is that for me, I would rather run my fastest race and take a bronze than get a gold for being 20 seconds slower just because everybody else was. I would rather take a bronze and beat my best time than get the gold and be 20 seconds slower than my best race just because everyone else was. Because I don't care about what their clock says. I don't care about what their time was. I don't care. I want to be faster. So I'm competing with myself. I want it to be better than the last time I did it. I don't care about losing to anybody else. I won't lose to myself. So I'm only competing with me, and I'm chasing some future phantom version of myself and trying to beat that. Like, what is my ultimate form? And that's what I look to, because that is what like staying in your lane really looks like. Staying in your lane is about really focusing inward on yourself. It's not about not going into other people's into topics or things where people want to claim that you don't have a right to speak, which is BS and gatekeeping. Staying in your own lane is really ultimately about looking to yourself and being able to say, what represents my best? What represents my full potential? What represents my best effort? And knowing that you gave your all. And that's what it's really all about. And so I think that this is a good place to end the podcast today. And I really want to thank all of you. I will be continuing the live stream a little bit after we end the show for those of you who are in the live YouTube audience. And if you want to be part of the live experience, make sure you're going to youtube.com/CSAT podcast, as in Create Something Awesome Today podcast. And it will be linked in the show notes. And so just make sure you're doing that if you ever want to participate in the live Wednesday discussion that happens after the show. I really do want to thank everybody. And of course, I want to thank today's sponsor.
We thrive thanks to the support from our sponsors. Here's a word from one of them.
This show is brought to you today by our friends over at StreamYard. And again, I could not really be doing this as easily without them. StreamYard is the amazing and simple to use streaming application that lets me do a video podcast and stream it across YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn Live, and Periscope all at once, which is something that I don't think I've ever been able to do. It also means that it's very easy and convenient for me to bring in guests into the show with nothing for them to download and nothing for me to download as well. It's been one of the most stable streaming experiences I've ever had, and I really do appreciate them being a partner of the show. I really do, and they also help with my YouTube live streams. This is an amazing app, and I would love for all of you to try it. So you can go ahead and you can use my link in the description down below to get the free version of StreamYard, or if you want to use any of the paid versions, feel free to do that as well. I definitely feel that it's worth it. They have amazing features, and I really think it can up your live streaming game. I'm also getting ready to design some templates in the YouTube starter kit that can help you if you're a content creator who wants your live streams to look pro. So make sure you're checking out StreamYard at robertoblake.com/go/StreamYard. Thank you for sponsoring our program. Well, that's it for today, everybody. I really do hope that you're doing well and that you enjoyed the broadcast. If you're in the live audience, please make sure you stick around for the after show. We're going to hang out for about another 10 or 15 minutes. And then, of course, we'll go ahead and we'll end the live experience. In the meantime, to all of the podcast listeners out there, thank you so much. Please remember to rate and review in Apple iTunes. It really does help the show. And if you want to be part of the live experience, we do it on Wednesdays. Follow me at Roberto Blake in your social media platform of choice to be able to get notified. Anyway, that's it for today's show. Go out there, create something awesome today. Take care.
This episode has ended, but your creative journey continues. Visit createsomethingawesometoday.com and access all links and resources mentioned in today's show, all designed to help you create something awesome today.
All right, and that is it for the audio podcast episode, and hopefully that should be available for you guys in a couple of days for your listening pleasure in all places that podcasts can be found. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's show. Let's do a little bit of discussion on this one for like maybe 5 or 10 minutes, and then we will close out the show. So that's an hour, and it's easier on the Clips channel when we get that up and running. So thank you to everybody in the chat, by the way. Really do appreciate you. And yeah, it's also pretty dope to be able to have this go out to multiple platforms and to be able to have more people become aware of the podcast. Roberto, did you see the new Death Battle Winter Soldier versus Red Hood? It was an awesome episode. Yeah, I did. I actually love that channel. I think they're actually pretty dope. And to see them do something live action that was different reminds me of what Bad in the Sun does sometimes. So looked really good. Nick says, we appreciate you. I appreciate you too, Nick. Thank you. Yep. Adrian asks, is this going to be a weekly thing from now on? Trying to be consistent on the podcast. If you all missed last week's episode was about the importance of setting boundaries. Audio is very good today. Thank you. Yeah. Not only do I have the Rodecaster Pro and the Shure SMB7, but I'm using a cloud lifter. Finally got that to work due to some feedback on Nick Nimmons' live stream. Finally got that to work with my hardware setup. So, yep. Yeah, I don't have a scheduled time for the podcast other than it going on Wednesday, usually around lunchtime for me. So, yeah. Aston Regis says, I loved your new video on freelancing, something I want to do more of. Do you have any more freelancing videos coming up? That's the plan, ultimately, is to have some coming up, and some of them might be kind of tucked into some more make money online videos with comparing certain things. I'm a little, it's fine. I'm not going to pretend I'm not slightly irritated that the freelancing video is not performing better. I would like for it to hit 5,000 to 6,000 views in the first 24 hours to know that YouTube isn't going to stop promoting it. Besides search, because it is a very good topic. It's also not ranking as well as I would hope. So that's a little rough, but it happens sometimes and you just have to go with it. But the problem with that is I know that topic of freelancing could actually really, really help a lot of people to make money faster and more realistically. And it's discouraging when videos about getting views and subs on YouTube perform better than videos that would help most people in most situations with a 9-to-5 job make money faster than they're going to make money on YouTube, because making money from YouTube ads and sponsors is unrealistic for the majority of content creators who are starting out in their first year or even in their first 2 years in terms of good money that could actually help them. And with COVID right now, I just wish more people would be less obsessed with getting more views and subs and would look at the fact that as a creator, they can free up themselves by making some extra money by doing some work for other people, doing some gig work. I think that gig work is the fastest way to make money right now, because you can make money every day you do gig work instead of waiting to the end of the month or the middle of the month for a paycheck from a platform. So I think people should do gig work. And like Psalmist Scribe says, I admit I almost didn't click on that freelance video, but I found it very helpful. Psalmist Scribe, what made you, I'm curious about this. I'm curious to everybody in the chat. What if you had my video on how to make $100 a day freelancing come up in YouTube and you haven't watched it yet? Could you tell me why you didn't click on that video and why you didn't watch it? And I'm especially interested, psalmist scribe, in why you didn't almost click on it, even though you say now that you did, you found it very helpful, because I'm super interested in that, because you almost skipped something that was valuable to you. And I need to figure out why people are doing that, because the click-through rate on that video is much lower than I feel it should be, given people's current situation. So really curious about that. Thank you. Holly asked, do you have any recommendations for gig work websites? Right now for creative people, even though I have, so when it comes to gig work and freelancing, I have some mixed feelings about Fiverr, because sometimes there are things on Fiverr that I don't agree with. The quality control there sometimes is an issue. Like in the YouTube space, there's a lot of people promoting that they'll help your channel or do this or do that, but they're just buying followers or subscribers, and then you are stuck with that and it hurts your channel. So I hate all of that. And then there are people who have tried to use my face and likeness on their Fiverr gigs. So they're trying to use my reputation, and Fiverr doesn't really do anything about it, even with my audience reporting it. So that's where it bothers me about Fiverr. But here's why I recommend it for you guys, because my grievances are no reason for you to not make good money. It's one of the easiest websites as a freelancer and gig worker to get approved for. And the variety of opportunities available to you are just too good to pass up. The variety of opportunities with being able to do voiceover work, or to be able to read and narrate things, to be able to do articles, to be able to do proofreading, to be able to do email management as a virtual assistant, the stuff that if you can do basic design work that's there. There's just too many good opportunities for people who need money for me to let whatever grievances or concerns I have about the platform keep me from informing you of those opportunities and how they could benefit you and how to best operate in a world where Fiverr exists. And it's easier to get gigs on Fiverr than it is to, like with Upwork, you may not even get through their approval process. And so Fiverr is the most well-known. It may be the most competitive also, but I think there's so much opportunity there that I can't not talk about it realistically for my audience. Yeah, Red Pill God says, I made good money on Fiverr from making beats. Yeah, I'm looking for people to make beats that I want full commercial rights to, because I want to do stuff with streaming and royalties, but I also want to give away free assets, and I want to give away free audio assets. So I'm looking for those kind of people too. So yeah, so that's why. When it comes to the $100 a day videos, I know some people look at that and they think it's unrealistic, but the thing is, I immediately address that in the videos. I immediately address, maybe I need to make another like video down the road specifically about like whether it's possible or the truth about the videos about making $100 a day. Because the thing that I do that no one else does is I break down exactly how to do it and why it works and what makes it realistic whenever I talk about it. When it was how to make $100 a day on YouTube, 5 proven ways, I got really specific about it. Like I explained how many hoodies you would need to sell a day to make $100. I explained how many of this affiliate thing you'd have to do to make $100. I explained how many views you would have to get to make $100 on YouTube. That's why I made a video just for YouTubers about making $100 a day. And I did the same thing with the freelancing stuff and explained how that works and how you make $3,000 a month or, $100 a day, because the equivalent of $100 a day is just $3,000. And I say just, but it's like, if you can do work that has a hot $500 or better price point 6 times in a month, that's actually reasonable. And in some cases you can do better, because like I said, with photography, right? With photography, even if you have a entry-level camera, you might be able to do wedding photography or video for someone who has a budget on a weekend and get like $600 on a weekend. Okay. So if you got $600 on the weekend and then you did 2 $100 gigs during the week, you're at $800 for the week. And so repeating that, when you think about it, you could get 2 of those $600 weddings in a month, if it's wedding season or whatever, or you know people who are getting married in a world where COVID may not be happening. Or there might be a higher premium on it in a world where COVID is happening. So you could do that, and then you could get these other gigs that might be between $100, $200. Don't take the $50 gigs, okay? You go for the high gigs, but you also put yourself in a position to compete for those, because a lot of people are too scared, and a lot of people just don't have anything to offer, and so you go for it. And so when you get those $100, $200, and $500 gigs, it all adds up. So it's a matter of, well, am I going to do 10 gigs that I know I can get $350 for, or am I going to do 6 gigs that I know I can get like $500, $600 for? It's all math. It's all math. That's all. So that's how I approach it. It's always math. Hope says, for me, I clicked on it last night because I knew it wouldn't go in circles, but most of the time I won't click on that kind of content because of the thumbnail and content don't match up. I hear you, and I don't know, like, I guess that people who are familiar with my content know better, but I understand that there are people in the niche that do that and it ends up being clickbait. I specifically make my videos in that niche to be the opposite of those people. And the thing is, I'm not sure that I could make a thumbnail. Like, what thumbnail about that topic would you click on? Because I just think that if you weren't familiar with my content, I just don't think that, I think if you are skeptical or cynical at all about that topic and also not familiar with me, I don't think there's anything I can do. So I just think that's how it is. I think you either are the type of person who will watch that video or you won't. And if it's from somebody that you like and you trust, you'll give that video a chance. But there's nothing I can do for people who wouldn't click that video that don't know me. There's nothing I can do. At least, I mean, that's my own skepticism there. I just don't think there's anything I could do. I mean, unless you're telling me there's some kind of thumbnail that you would be more likely to click on, even if you didn't know me, than the type of thumbnails that are designed. Because the reason that the thumbnails in YouTube are designed the way they are is because they work. As much as people criticize thumbnails or people or any of that, it's because they work. It's because they work. When you see the things that get the most views, it's what works. So it's just what it is. Corey asked, how do you get the most out of your 100 crappy videos from a development standpoint doing software tutorials? Get better at presentation, Corey. With software tutorials, get better at presentation. One of the reasons that people struggle with that one is the content is really dry. It's also a niche market. I had software tutorials that were around Photoshop and video editing. I tried to interject some personality into those when I was doing it. And also I tried to be concise, no fluff, get to the point, but also be very beginner friendly and not take the beginner for granted. So making it as accessible as possible, making sure that it doesn't feel like it talks down to people and that it doesn't go too fast for them, but also not painfully slow, and that doesn't feel dry is probably the way to go. I think that would be what would help you the most. Also, with 100 crappy videos in general, if you're going to make your first 100 videos knowing that they're going to probably not be good because you don't have experience, what I would tell you is set a goal for improvement, not a goal for views, not a goal for subs. Set a goal for how you're going to make the next video better every single time. For me, a lot of that was, how am I going to get audio better? Which you guys know I'm obsessed with now. How am I going to get audio better? How am I going to get lighting better? How am I going to figure out, how do I not have this shadow on my face with the mic? Like figuring out positioning of the mic and things like that. How do I get my backdrops to look better? How do I do this? I always think of, in my goal personally, is how can I create a better viewer experience? How can I make the content itself better versus just trying to always... Most content creators are super selfish. They want to get more validation out of the content. They want to get more money out of the content. They want to get everything. And there's reasons for that. And I'm not hating on it at all. I'm just saying that I feel the most successful creators are the ones that do everything they can to put the audience first and make the best viewer experience possible. So that would be my advice. My advice is to try to make a better video and make them less crappy every single video going forward. And that's what Mr. Beast did. Based on what I'm seeing in my live streaming windows and stuff like that, the video quality should be good here. If you're experiencing something differently, I don't know, but everything on my end, from what I can tell, it could be, again, we're broadcasting live right now, so I'm not sure, maybe the playback, because I know that the quality settings I have in place should be at least 720. So you should be seeing at least a 720p audio experience live right now. So if you're seeing low quality for any reason, I apologize. And it may be a bandwidth issue, but the replay should be crystal clear. And I think that's true when it comes to most of these podcasts, the way that I'm doing them. I think that the replay is crystal clear. So if you're not having as clean of a video feed during the live, then I apologize. It looks grainy. Someone said it looks pixelated. Yeah, I don't really know why that would be the case, but, yeah, sorry about that. The most I can do is just, apologize if it's not perfect. I'm going to look into whether or not there's anything that improves the video quality during a live stream, because as best as I can tell, everything I'm doing should be fine. Everything I'm doing right now, should make sure that this is a pretty high quality overall stream. The only thing I can think of is whether or not there may be, because this is a high-end enough computer to where even things running in the background usually shouldn't be an issue. Even if there are other apps open, it shouldn't be a problem with this level of hardware. So I don't know. I'm just trying a few things here right now and seeing if shutting those things down, because I end up never using majority of the resources that this computer has. This computer is a monster. It was designed for, it was much better on the previous one, and then it changed, so it's probably bandwidth. Yeah, I assume that it's some kind of bandwidth issue, which just means the internet's being the internet. It might be because more people might be online right now versus not. So, that's just a thing. So I don't know. Yep. But with that in mind, I think that that's going to do it for today's stream. Thank you all for joining me. I do appreciate it. And I do think we have some good stuff to clip out of this for the clip show. So that's going to be actually really good to be able to have that on the Clips channel, and we'll have something probably out later this week on the Clips channel for you guys to watch, probably like this, something from this or from the last one. So look forward to that. And ultimately, I do think like the internet across the board is probably struggling a little bit because of the pandemic, because of COVID, but we'll see. But I do appreciate you guys taking the time today. It's lunchtime, so we're going to wrap things up, and then I have a video to put out later today. Today's video I'm going to be doing is going to be about the new YouTube policies, and I'm pretty sure that because that one is going to cause a little bit of panic, that people are going to actually watch that video, unlike the video about freelancing. So definitely make sure you're staying tuned for that as well. And at some point, I will figure out what the bandwidth issue is in terms of the quality of the live streams, because you guys know that I'm obsessed with quality and I want to make sure you guys are having the best viewing experience possible. So anything I can do to make that happen is something that I'm going to obviously put research into. Anyway, guys, make sure that you check out the replay. Leave me your comments. I will be replying to them, and I will see you guys next Wednesday. Stay awesome.